Okay, guys, what is the definition of the operating angle? Does anybody know? Do you remember? It's the difference between something and something. Okay, the operating angle is the difference between the angle of your drivetrain component and the angle of the actual U-joint of the drive shaft. So it's the drive shaft angle versus component angle. And right now I'm going to teach you how to measure that. Okay? We need to measure that angle because we understand that when the U-joint angle gets too steep, it will bind and it will shake. Okay? Now, since you've looked at the repair procedure, you know that the proper angle on this vehicle is minimum 1 degree, like I mentioned. Maximum is 3. It'll never see 3 unless maybe your transmission mount breaks or something, because the transmission is fixed and the front shaft is supported by hanger bearing, so there shouldn't be any movement. So the first step is this. If you notice, my vehicle is suspended. Okay, the rear wheels are off the hoist. The front wheels are off well, the front is lifted because I need to level out the car. You normally would measure the drivetrain angle if the car is loaded on the ground. But the thing is, I want the rear wheels suspended so that I can rotate the propeller shaft. The reason why you need to rotate the propeller shaft is this. You notice that the flat surface, known as the cap of the U-joint, that cap that goes over the trunnions, that's your flat surface. That's your guaranteed flat surface reference point. You cannot guarantee that the shaft housing itself is straight. You cannot guarantee that the yoke surface is straight. So what I did earlier was, okay, just so we can avoid the struggle, in here, what you're going to see, especially in this video, those of you who can't see from outside, the U-joint has a snap ring. I've removed the snap ring. This is an external snap ring that has that funny shape, looks like a bean or whatever. What's this called again? Spicer. Yes, the Spicer style snap ring. Exactly.
External.
Yeah, external. I have removed it, and the reason why I remove it, I have a socket, just a socket wrench. Guess what I'm going to do with the socket wrench? This will fit inside the yoke of the propeller shaft to create a flat surface for you to use. Make sense? Now, the first thing you need to do before you measure, right now we're going to look at it this way. If you're going to look at the video, you'll see that there's a flange that goes towards the component, which is your drivetrain in this case, or sorry, your transmission. And then the other yoke goes towards the shaft. So you need to measure 2 joints, 2 surfaces. Make sense? One surface represents the component, one surface represents the shaft. So since it's already facing downwards, I'm going to measure the cap that goes towards the shaft side. When you're measuring, you're going to use what you call an angle finding gauge. This is like a protractor, right? You're going to start on the driver's side of the vehicle on the front and always stay on the same side. You're not going to measure like this and then all of a sudden spin around and measure the other way. Everything's done on the one side, okay? But before, Coy actually mentioned this earlier. So I got this cap facing down, right? So I'm going to put this socket here. What's the first angle we have to make sure is straight before we do any measurements? Does anybody know? The propeller shaft rotates, does it not? What if the propeller shaft was like this? I rotated it. Doesn't the propeller shaft joint not only, or it has to basically face perfectly downwards. Does that make sense? You need the U-joint cap to be completely perpendicular. Otherwise it won't be accurate, right? So the first angle I find is I put the socket in, okay? I put the socket in as such. I put my angle finding gauge. I'll do it this way to face Coy, right? Okay, can you see the dial? Can you see it? Okay, you tell me when it's 0.
Yeah, it's 0.
Is it 0?
A little bit more.
Is it 0?
Yeah, it's 0, yes.
Okay,
exactly.
so right now, my propeller shaft is 100% facing down. Now I can measure the angle of my drive shaft. I'm gonna take the angle gauge, put the socket back, just to let you know, some tools, they come with a magnetic, like a trunnion on it. Like it has something that's round and magnetic. Right now we're improvising, so I'm gonna fit that in there. Okay.
It's not 0.
All right, I'm just gonna measure it, and I got approximately
0.3.
like 0.3 degrees. So that means my drive shaft, 3 degrees is my drive shaft angle. 3 degrees is my drive shaft angle. Now I gotta measure the component side. So that's why I want the vehicle to be suspended. Just to backtrack, what I did was the back axle's off the ground. What you'll see here is I used the center lift to lift the front of the vehicle. and I use the actual gauge on the body to make sure that my body's perpendicular. Do you understand? I want to make sure the car's perfectly flat, right? That way you get accurate readings. So now I'm going to turn the propeller shaft. I've already pre-removed the snap ring from the component side. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to make sure that the component is vertical, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the socket. Right? I'm going to have to use your assistance, Koi. You tell me.
Keep going. It's
You can rotate it. I'll just hold the
a
gauge.
little more,
A little more?
and should be, yeah, 0.
Like that? Okay, so it's zeroed out. Same thing. We're going to measure the angle of the transmission now. Put the socket in there to the nice flat surface. And I got maybe like,
2?
not even, maybe like, I don't know, like 1 and a bit. 1 and a bit or something like that. It's in floating between 1 or 2 degrees, right? Because between here and here is 10 degrees. Every little increment is a degree.
Yeah.
Okay? So 3 minus like 1.5, let's say. It was about 3 degrees minus like 1.5, borderline 2. So what's the difference? 3 minus 2 is 1. Is that in spec? Right, that have about 1 degree. And we mentioned any U-joint, you need at least 1 degree. Now, normally if you have a shaft that has a U-joint in the front, U-joint in the back, we would do the same measurement, but to the back. Because if you have a vibration, you want to determine which part of the driveline has an operating angle issue. Okay? Any questions? Okay, we'll view this in class together because I know a lot of you can't see because of the hoist design, but the alignment hoist is the best way to do it, right? Trucks that are easier to measure, if you had like a 4x4, you can crawl underneath, you won't need to lift it at all. All right? Cool, thank you. All right, now this, you don't have to film, I want to